Little background. I moved to Utah when I was 14. My folks moved to Provo. Finished school there. Got in the Army, was a helicopter mechanic in Vietnam. Came back. Took advantage of the GI Bill and spent 5 years getting degrees in industrial engineering and at the University of Utah. And after living in Provo, I thought Salt Lake City is a pretty easy thing to abide, and decided to stay here. I'd also seen, at that time, maybe 5% of southern Utah, and realized that if I spent the rest of my life here, I still wouldn't see all of it. I just think this is such an amazing state. So I'm here. A few years after I graduated, I met my wife, Greta Ballinger, who does Catalyst Magazine. She started a couple years before we met. And at the time, I was struggling with my career as an industrial engineer and realized industrial engineering is sort of the cutting edge of capitalist pigism. It's getting a couple cents for the squeak. And on the other hand, there's Greta doing the catalyst. And it's such a wonderful thing. I'm not sure if it's politically correct, but if there's anybody that I know that's above the sci-fi, it's Greta. She's truly a wonderful woman. So I put my shoulder behind the wheel of Catalyst and now style myself as the Catalyst hacker. I've had a bunch of passions in my life. At one point it was education. I was on the Salt Lake City School Board for 4 years, and somebody's got to take this bullet. Some people came looking for Greta to run for school board, and we looked at each other and realized I was on fewer boards than she was at the time. So I ran for office, made it through the primaries, and actually got elected to the school board. And came to the conclusion that education is one of the highest callings in life. It's wonderful. But also realized that the problem at the time was not in the Salt Lake City School District. It was up at the legislature. And we couldn't do much in this office. So, and I do tend to do things in sort of 5-year span, fits of passion or something like that. I figured 4 years did better than 8 years did. About 12 years ago, I got my first digital camera and had taken a bunch of film photographs, but the digital camera really freed me up. I'd never gotten into a dark room. I didn't have the time or the money to do that, but with digital photography, you can do anything you want to. You get in Photoshop and you can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of darkroom time and supplies in seconds for free. So really had a good time with that. Anna was one of the first persons who really got excited about my photography. And I was going to have a slideshow that I figured that probably wasn't light enough here, so decided not to do that. And then I'm going to read a little piece about my current passion. This is a piece I wrote for a writers' conference last June. I should have taken a novel class, but I ended up in a memoir class, and the lady giving the class gave us sort of suggestions to get us going. Not that I've got a problem getting going at all. My column on Catalyst, which I've written about 150 of, is called "Don't Get Me Started." But they tend to be very political, analytical things, and a book what I'm doing now is very different than that. Anyway, it was not an assignment to write a steampunk science fiction vampire murder mystery that I asked for. I asked for something to do with my next 60 years. Not that I have anything against steampunk, science fiction, vampires, or murder mysteries. I only learned what steampunk was last summer. I read science fiction extensively before college, but except for sci-fi movies, I've had little exposure to it since, and I wouldn't know Agatha Christie if she bit me on the neck. It's just that if I was going to write a book, I thought it would be nonfiction. I'm a congenital engineer, a little bit of that, possibly a explanation for my passion is a joke I told when I was running for the school board. During the French Revolution, there's a priest, a rabbi, and an engineer have their heads chopped off with the guillotine. And the priest goes first, gets down there and says his prayers and puts his neck down, they pull the cord, and nothing happens. It's a miracle, and they let him go. The rabbi's next, he says his prayers, and they pull the cord again, and nothing happens again. It's another miracle. He's let off. And the engineer gets up there, puts his head down and says, I can fix that. So I'm a congenital engineer. I think in coordinates, blueprints, and Excel spreadsheets. You can't get much further from steampunk, science fiction, vampires, or murder mysteries than that. It started with my second Saturn return, a 29-year astrological cycle where the planet Saturn returns to the same place where it was where you were born. For most people, Saturn returns are a time to start over. But what was it I was to start anew? I've been waiting for it since I was 58, 2 years. I've tried fairly successfully to take a wait-and-see attitude. I was going to say Zen attitude. But 2 years is a long time biding my time, and I've been getting impatient. Then I go to a conference at a ranch in southern Utah devoted to the question of whether it is possible to achieve a real dimensional shift in our understanding of reality. You can consider this paper one of the lab reports. The presenters are leading lights of the frontier, a famous artist known for his portrayals of pan-dimensional beings, and a contrarian archaeologist who believes that ancient civilizations are much older than commonly accepted, and that expanded consciousness can lead us into the future. At the opening ceremony in the geodesic dome, with a huge earth altar, we introduced ourselves. The contrarian anthropologist next to me introduced himself and explained that, having turned 60 last August 2nd, he was embarked on a new life path. He has written a novel about ancient civilizations, having written non-fiction books for most of his life. Damn, I think, this guy is 6 days older than me, and what have I accomplished? No books, fiction or non-fiction, a sheaf of editorial pieces, and a couple of articles about politics and the environment, but that's about it. As I listened to people introduce themselves, I took a look around the room and tried to figure out who the FBI agent is. After all, if you're an agent at something like this, what are they getting paid for? Not that I'll ever know, but it helps pass the time. There were 4 or 5 suspects. The 2 buzz-cut young men are almost too obvious. They look like Navy SEALs, a long way from home. Probably the overtop, tie-dye clad hippie kid. 2 middle-aged gentlemen, if you can call people who go around saying things like, when do we start the revolution, gentlemen? Acting like agent provocateurs. And a yogini who looks like she's taking directions from an earbud, but I can't see wires or anything. Then I wonder what it would be like if there was a conference about this, like this, where all the conferees were agents from one agency or another. Interesting, having just read a Washington Post series on America's security paranoia complex, it doesn't seem like too outrageous an idea. There could be 4 FBI agents at the conference, and because of compartmentalization, they wouldn't know about each other. Of course, the CIA, KGB, MI5, MI6, Israeli, Japanese, Chinese, Indian, Pakistani intelligence agencies would have to have their agents in attendance. When I bounced my idea off a friend, she suggested that the presenters are aliens from other planets. Suddenly it blows up in my face, like a life raft in an airplane laboratory. So, everyone's a vampire who needs blood for long life and the ability to quickly repair damage to their DNA from space travel. Earth has had to go on the electromagnetic down low in order to avoid the depredations of space pirates, so everything is steam-powered or solar-powered. And of course, with all those elements, someone's going to get killed. By now, it's looking like a multimedia trilogy. So it looks like I'll spend my next 60 years writing serialized steampunk science fiction vampire murder mystery. So at this point, I'll open up to questions. I'm going to say a little bit more about the the book. I've been interested in a bunch of different things. I didn't think it was going to be as much a vampire book as I thought it was. As it turns out, this is all in the book, this is not reality. My vampires suck blood for the telomeres in the DNA, so they can live a very long time. So I am a 3,000-year-old Japanese priest in the book. The steampunk started out as the description of science fiction set in the Victorian era. Jules Verne is a prime example of steampunk. But in my book, we've discovered that space pirates are going across the galaxy, raping and pillaging planets. And if we don't want to attract the attention of the space pirates, we've got to go on the down low. Essentially, no detonations of any kind, so no bombs, no bullets, no nuclear power. So one of the threads in the book is what is the utopian world where we live on a much slimmer energy budget. And this is something I realized, first thought it would be just a single novel, and the more I get into it, I realize it's this huge Tolkien-esque sort of world. Actually, the term is writing the Bible right now. I've written a few scenes, but most of it is just which planets are the aliens from, how do the vampires, which I call infinites, how do they go about their business? Because certainly if you're all to stay young, you've got to fool the society you're in to thinking that you're a little older and maybe you die. So actually one of the scenes is a Viking funeral scene where they put the body on the boat and set it afire and set it off into the fjord, and as it proceeds into the mists, a skiff comes along with 4 people on it and puts the fire out and starts reviving the corpse, who's actually an infinite whose time to check out has come, and they sail to Ireland. And actually this is one of the characters in the book. And the book's centered around this conference. The conference had 70 amazing people, Greta, a couple other good friends, and actually populates the whole book. And it's about people coming to this conference. I'm still not sure what the intention of the conference is. That's something I'm going to channel or come across. I've been trying to figure out what it is. There's a good chance that Greta is actually the only person who is not an agent. But I'm not quite sure what to do with that. But back to the Viking scene, well, yeah, so they sailed to Ireland, and that character actually ends up as one of the characters in the book in about 30 years from now. But most of what I've been doing is the Bible and trying to figure stuff out. The infinites, I'm thinking, very closely parallel. Well, they've got to hibernate for maybe 29 years, one Saturn return cycle, or possibly a Jupiter cycle, which is the 12-year cycle that Chinese astrology is based on. I've got a bunch of different threads I'd like to bring into this. One of those is astrology. I really think there's something so absolutely true in astrology that I kind of like to figure it out. At one point, 10 years ago, I was thinking about going back to law school because I wanted to take 3 cases to the Supreme Court. One of them is corporations are persons, which I don't believe. It's a constitutional sense that a corporation has the same rights to free speech, which by this Supreme Court has been interpreted to mean free money. They can spend all the money they want to. And if at the end of this you'd like to sign a petition, if you're a Salt Lake City voter, to put the question on a referendum on this year's ballot, I've got that petition, and you can sign that. The second case was that free speech, money is free speech. And I really believe that free speech is sitting up on a dais or a soapbox yelling at the top of your lungs, and it's not crafting some focus group message that gets broadcast 14 times a day, or anything like that. The third case I wanted to take to the Supreme Court was that legislators cannot make their own rules of procedure. So that, how many people make a quorum, their voting procedures and this sort of stuff have to be vetted by the judicial and executive branches, as opposed to them just putting whatever crazy rules they want with no checks and balances. And I was thinking real serious about that, and realized I really didn't want to go back to law school at 50. But the other thing I was interested in was trying to figure out, from an engineering, from a physics standpoint, of what is behind astrology. Because there's too much to it that, in a lot of astrology, I characterize as universally good advice. Save your money, don't go out in the middle of the night, stuff like that. But a lot of the rest of it, there just seems to be something to it, and I'd like to figure it out. And in my book, I'm playing around a little bit with the other planets where the aliens are from. What's the astrology like there? What would the lunar cycle, which is basically our fertility cycle, be like if you had 2 moons and it was a 45-day cycle or something like that? What if the harvest cycle was more than a year or anything, stuff like that? Which brings me to another one of the threads I've got, is the aliens are all Earthlings. And I got this from the amateur archaeologist. Earth, in my book, had evolved a society and a technology about 1,000 years beyond where we are now, 12,000 years ago. So it started colonizing the closest planets in this arm of the galaxy. And then it got its slate wiped. I'm not sure if it's a virus or economic decline or what. And basically got reduced back to Neanderthals. And then we are the result of that. But all the aliens in the book are actually Earthlings who've just come back to the home planet. But one of the things I'm investigating or thinking about, trying to reason through, is what's the astrology like in their planet. And it's an interesting tool to help me try to figure out how astrology works. What is it about the motions of the moon, the sun, and the other planets, that how do they affect us? And probably the primary reason for my strong belief in astrology is that I've really only had 2 partners in my life. First one was a friend I went to college with, and we come up with an idea. We got a patent on the idea, and spent 3 years with the startup up at Research Park. And Greta is my other partner. And they both have exactly the same birthday, December 28th. And the ways they are alike are totally uncanny. From just, there couldn't be 2 people in many ways similar. And which is, on one hand, was interesting in the first place, and then to think that my only 2 real partners are people with the same birthday. I'd like to try to figure that out. So that's one of the things I'm working on in the book. A couple other things. I've always been an iconoclast. I like to do things a different way. Engineers excel at taking something that exists and making it better. Sometimes we make it worse, but try to make it better. So I'm not sure, but it's definitely not going to be just a straight novel. If everybody's an agent, there's a bunch of agencies involved. All the agencies are going to have dossiers on all the attendees at the conference. So you'll be able to go online and find the dossiers on these people. A bunch of background that wouldn't fit in a narrative could be available online. Some of the scenes, like the Viking funeral scene, would probably be best as a video. Some scenes work better written. I have another scene where I call Wake, where a vampire priest is watching the full moon come up over the horizon, and when it clears the horizon, he goes back into a temple and starts reviving one of the hibernating infants. And as you proceed through the scene, you realize it's not just one priest, it's not just one temple. The same ritual is taking place all around the world as this full moon rises. And that's a scene that's beyond my ability to write in a book. I can see it as very easily as a video or a screenplay sort of thing. So actually, at this point, I'm sort of in a strange place with the book, trying to figure out how to proceed. Yeah.
Is it okay if I ask a question?
Yeah.
So another thread, and I don't know if you were going to get to it, but I think we only have about 15 more minutes before that lady comes back angry. But one of the things that you told me that inspired, that's a thread, is you said something really interesting that I think resonates for a lot of us. Mm-hmm. And that is that you're now 61, and that you never thought you'd live this long.
Okay.
And so this whole theme of being an infinite, and how do you, like now you're realizing that you might have 60 more years, and you thought, you didn't even think you'd be around for this length of time, so now what do you do?
Yeah.
And I thought that is huge for everybody.
Yeah, okay. I had, almost 2 years ago, went up to the Veterans Administration Hospital thinking I had a heart attack. And turns out I was just drinking so much that I was having gastro reflux and having this strange pain in the back of my chest. And it turns out I'm in good shape. But I really had not planned beyond living beyond 60. My dad was dead at 61 at the second heart attack. We got heart attacks all through my family and stuff like this. And also pretty much living not on the edge, but I'll try anything. I lost a couple lives, cats' lives in Vietnam. I lost one on the Colorado River. I don't know how many of you have seen the film 127 Hours. I go backpacking in southern Utah by myself. I thought seriously about putting a do not rescue sticker on my car so if I don't come back in 3 days, they don't spend $100,000 searching for me. I don't do as crazy things as the guy 127 Hours did, but I really didn't think I was going to live past 60. And after I got a clean bill of health, except the drinking, I started thinking about everything that Catalyst has brought out, the advances in medicine. And it is seriously possible for me to live another 60 years, for me to live another 60 years. And sort of sitting in that space saying, okay, well, what am I going to do? Catalyst is fun, but it's a part-time job.